Billionaire exposes hidden generosity after single dad orders only water. Discover the life-changing moment. In the heart of a bustling downtown diner, the sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the faces of tired workers and families enjoying their meals. Among them sat Jake, a 35-year-old single father on a rare day out with his kids Mia and Noah. The worn-out booths felt like home. The air was rich with the scent of bacon and coffee. And yet, here was Jake, fingers trembling slightly as he opened the menu, his heart heavy with the weight of choices. "Just water for us, kids," he said, attempting to mask the twinge of disappointment threading through his voice. Mia frowned. "But Dad, can't we get lemonades?" Her tiny face displayed a mix of confusion and hope. Jake felt his chest tighten. "I promise we can next time," he smiled weakly, thinking of the rent looming over him like a storm cloud. "Today's a special adventure. Let us just enjoy our time." About 2 tables away, David, a billionaire cloaked in a baseball cap and worn hoodie, overheard. He glanced at Jake, his heart twisting in his chest. The father's love for his children shone through the cracks of hardship. It was palpable, a love so raw and tenacious that it stirred something deep within David. He recalled his own privileged existence spent in cold boardrooms, void of such warmth. As David watched Jake transform a simple outing into something magical with stories and laughter, a strange mix of pride and guilt ignited within him. Should he intervene or just observe? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue with a hasty decision. David picked up his phone and transferred a significant sum anonymously to the diner, hoping to cover Jake's meal and lift a burden off his shoulders. But as luck would have it, when the waitress arrived, she revealed the payment in front of the diners. The atmosphere shifted. Whispers rippled through the room. Eyes turned to Jake. "Must be nice to mooch off some rich guy." Someone scoffed, laughter punctuating the chatter. Jake stammered, trying to explain, but the words caught in his throat like twisted vines. He felt the heat rise in his cheeks, the weight of scorn pressing down like a ton of bricks. "Dad, what is happening?" Mia's tiny voice trembled beside him. "Nothing, sweetie," he whispered, gripping her hand tighter. But the accusation stung like ice. Jake had worked too hard, sold his soul to keep the lights on. Integrity was everything. The confrontation was inevitable. David rose, guilt morphing into urgency. "I wanted to help," he started, but was met with Jake's fiery glare. "Help?" Jake shot back, frustration erupting. "This isn't help. It's a misunderstanding that makes me look like a fraud in front of my kids." Silence blanketed the diner, tension curling in the air. David watched, questioning his own actions while Jake teetered on the edge of despair. Then, just as Jake prepared to defend his character one last time, a loud crash echoed through the diner. A plate shattered to the floor, breaking the moment like a sunbeam-piercing fog, leaving both men and those around them at the brink of something unexpected. The sudden crash of the plate sent a jolt through the diner. All eyes turned to the source, the frazzled waitress who stood wide-eyed amidst the shards. For a heartbeat, the room was silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. It was enough to remind everyone of the fragile veneer of civility that held them in check. Jake blinked, the chaos around him fading momentarily as he focused on the waitress. She quickly knelt to pick up the remnants, mumbling apologies and trying to assure the surrounding customers that everything was fine. But those words hung hollow in the air, swallowed by the judgmental whispers that had resumed. "Dad," Mia's voice quavered again, and Jake's heart sank deeper. He finally turned to face his daughter, and in that moment, he realized he couldn't hide behind a mask of bravery any longer. The consequences of this moment were real, and he needed to protect Mia and Noah from embarrassment. "Let us go," he said, his voice steadying as he stood up. The diner felt like a cage, walls closing in on him, the laughter and stares now directed as if they were weighing him down. He reached for Noah's hand with one arm while pulling Mia close with the other. They shuffled past the onlookers, a mix of pity and scorn stretching across their faces. "Jake!" David called out, rushing after him. Jake stopped spinning around. I don't want your help. The anger in his voice surprised even himself. He hadn't meant for it to come out that way, but the sting of humiliation fired through him. I'm sorry, David pleaded, his own shame evident. I just wanted to lighten your load. I didn't mean no, you just wanted to feel good about yourself. Jake shot back, rage simmering just below the surface. You think throwing money at problems makes you some kind of hero? This isn't about you. The diner's chatter died down again, eyes glued to the confrontation. David felt the weight of Jake's words. That reflection was exactly the moment he had been wrestling with, the exact truth he had been trying to escape. He may have all the money in the world, but what good was it if he couldn't understand real struggles? Jake, please. David took a step closer. You have kids, let me help you. I'll be anonymous. Just consider a quick stop, a moment, and it'll all be over. Jake clenched his jaw, caught between his instinct to protect his pride and the desperate needs of his family. The thought of burdens eased felt both tempting and debilitating. Would a simple act of assistance crush his resolve, or allow him to breathe a bit easier tomorrow? Suddenly his kids' anxious gazes pierced through his turmoil. Mia's eyes had begun to shimmer with unshed tears, and Noah looked confused. Whatever he chose next would affect them too. Why don't we finish our water first? Mia whispered, her tiny hands shaking in the silence of the moment. Just as Jake's heart ached with indecision, another voice broke in, this one familiar. What the hell is going on here? It was an older gentleman, gray hair and a serious expression, standing up from his own booth as if the weight of authority followed him. Jake's heart raced. Was there going to be another confrontation? The man's gaze shifted from Jake to David, then back, catching the expressions around the room. He frowned, advancing toward them. I think everyone should mind their business, he declared with unexpected force. As the diner descended into another wave of whispers and gasps, Jake stood frozen, uncertain of what would come next. But something was changing. Would he find a way to accept help, or would pride drive him away? Just then, Mia's small hand slipped free, reaching for the man, and the air shifted yet again. Jake's heart pounded. Could he trust what was about to happen? Mia's tiny fingers weaved through the air, stretching toward the older man. For a brief moment, the diner was suspended in time, breaths held tight and watchful eyes absorbing every detail. Jake wanted to pull her back, to protect her from the chaos that brewed. But something in the man's demeanor offered a flicker of hope. The gray-haired gentleman stopped abruptly when Mia's hand touched his sleeve. He looked down at her, surprise softening the stern lines of his face. In that instant, the intensity in the room shifted. It was no longer about the confrontation or the whispers of the onlookers. It was about a child reaching out, longing for something simple: kindness. Hey there, sweet pea, the man said, his voice a warm rumble. He knelt to meet her gaze, leaving behind the gathering storm of the adults. What's your name? Mia, she replied, her voice a timid whisper, but there was an undeniable spark of bravery in her eyes. Mia, he repeated softly, as though savoring her name. What's wrong, darling? Jake felt an uncomfortable blend of pride and protectiveness swell within him. He took a step forward, but Mia glanced back, her determination solid. We just wanted water, she said. And there was a sincerity that wrapped around her words like a soft blanket. The man straightened up, turning his attention back to Jake. Is that the issue here? He asked, his tone shifting from authority to genuine concern. Just some water? Jake's heart pounded in his chest as he searched for words. We don't have the it's not, he faltered, the heaviness of his pride weighing down his voice. Jake, David's voice cut in, softer now, it's okay. The man glanced between them, his eyes narrowing slightly. I've seen people like you before, willing to struggle against the world alone. But sometimes I think you need to let others lend a hand. Jake felt a stir of anger mixed with the stirring of something else, something uncomfortable. He didn't want to appear weak, didn't want to admit that he was drowning beneath the pressure. But here stood this stranger, offering not just judgment but understanding. Mia took that moment to interrupt. Can you help us? She asked, her eyes sparkling with a mix of hope and innocence. The whole diner seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the man's response. Without hesitating, he replied, of course I can. Let me get you all some food and I promise you it's on me. No strings attached. Jake's defenses wavered as he looked at his daughter. The hope in her eyes flooded him with guilt. Did he let pride shut her away from kindness? Behind him, he could hear the murmurs of the crowd shifting from judgment to intrigue. A faint murmur of good for him floated through the air. David stepped closer again, coaxing the moment. Jake, what's it gonna be? The weight of it all fell heavily on Jake's chest. He could almost feel the ruin of his pride crumbling even as his need for respect held tighter. But as he met Mia's gaze again, he remembered that pride wouldn't feed his family. Just then, the man pulled out a folded bill from his pocket and waved it toward the waitress. Hey Claire. We need 3 waters and extra of whatever you've got back there. Jake's heart beat faster, an internal clash of vulnerability and rage bubbling inside him. Was he really accepting charity? And would this be the turning point, the moment that changed everything for him and his children? Mia stepped fully into the man's space, a smile blooming on her face. Thank you. Then Jake's breath caught as he faced the gray-haired stranger again. Did he really have the strength to open the door to receive help without getting crushed by his own pride? The sound of the diner began to swell again, and Jake sensed the weight of the moment hanging thick in the air, the past and future colliding in a single heartbeat, teetering on the edge of choice. But as the waitress approached, burdened down with trays, it was clear the real question still lingered. Would he let someone into their lives even just a little bit more? And with that, Jake felt a shift inside himself, a quiet determination building as if he might finally find the courage to say yes. The waitress glided over, balancing a tray piled high with steaming plates. She set it down gently with a smile, a small oasis in the tense atmosphere. The aroma of fried food and sweet pastries wafted through the air, pulling at Jake's senses. For a moment, he forgot the unfamiliar discomfort clawing at his gut as he watched the scene unfold before him. All right, here's your water and some of our best country fries, Claire said cheerfully, her eyes twinkling like they always did when she interacted with the customers. Wow, those look amazing, Mia said, her voice filled with joy as she reached for a golden fry. But Jake's heart sank. He glanced at the pile of food, suddenly aware of how little his children had eaten in days. It felt like all eyes in the diner were on him, the weight of judgment lingering in the air. The gray-haired man nodded. Dig in, kids. You look like you could use a good meal, he said, his tone comforting. It struck Jake how easily he had switched from being a potential aggressor to an ally. Maybe it was the way he treated Mia, the way he seemed to understand her need for safety and security. But Jake's skepticism nagged at him. Why are you helping us? He blurted out. The words escaped before he could reel them back. Was it actually possible that someone would offer their hand without expecting something in return? The man smiled, a genuine warm curve that eased some of Jake's unease. Sometimes we all need a little help. And sometimes there's just kindness in the world, waiting for someone to recognize it. He looked down at Mia, who was busy tasting the fries as if they were gold nuggets. You're lucky to have each other. Jake swallowed hard. Was he really lucky? It didn't feel that way on the long nights when bills piled up and the pantry shelves stood bare. But could this be the start of something different? Maybe it was just that ray of light he had been searching for amidst the shadows. Mia waved her hands, catching his attention. Can we stay here? Like just a little longer? Her own hope glimmered in the way her eyes lit up. She looked blissful as she dipped a fry in ketchup, her laughter spilling freely. The man looked at Jake, waiting for a nod of approval. There was no denying it, she wanted this, needed this. Jake felt the tide of his reluctance ebb slightly. What would it mean to let them enjoy this moment, to open up to the kindness offered? All right, he heard himself say, not knowing where the strength for that word came from. We can stay. The diner buzzed in anticipation. The earlier tension was replaced with a softer hum of laughter, and for the first time in a while, there was ease swelling within him. Even David's approving smile filled Jake with the warmth he hadn't expected. As Mia dove back into the food, the gray-haired man settled in beside them, engaging her in playful banter. For the first time, Jake saw her true self emerge, bubbly, carefree, and untouched by the worries that often clouded his mind. There was relief in surrendering to this moment, even if just for a little while. Jake looked around the diner, witnessing families share meals and laughter, feeling the weight of isolation lift. But just as the corners of his mouth began to curl into a smile, doubt unfurled in the back of his mind. What happened after this moment? What if the kindness faded, and their problems returned, heavier than ever? As if sensing his turmoil, the man leaned closer. Jake, what do you need? He had a way of infusing sincerity into his question, one that pricked at the mask Jake had so desperately constructed around himself. What did he need? In that moment the answer felt tantalizingly close, just beyond reach. Jake realized the true depth of the question, one that stirred long-buried fears within him. He inhaled sharply, as if the air turned thick around him, laced with the energy of unspoken possibility. And as he searched for words, the sound of laughter faded into a blur, replaced by a silent promise their lives could change in ways he could hardly imagine. Would he dare to embrace that change? Jake fumbled with his words, his heart pounding. The din of the diner melted away, leaving just him and the gray-haired man, whose gentle eyes seemed to peel back the layers of Jake's carefully cultivated facade. What did he need? He thought of the nights spent worrying, scrimping, and saving every last dime. He thought of his children, the way their laughter pierced through the gloom, but how often it was tinged with something darker that he couldn't quite articulate. I don't know, Jake finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. The man nodded, his expression neither impatient nor judgmental. Instead he leaned back, allowing Jake some space to gather his thoughts. For a brief moment, Jake was struck by the realization that vulnerability could be liberating and terrifying all at once. Mia was animatedly chatting away with Claire, who had returned to refill their drinks. The smile on Mia's face was a breath of fresh air, one Jake hadn't seen in months. It wrapped around his heart, even as a shadow of doubt crept back in. Mia deserved the world, and all he seemed to offer her was struggle. Dad? Mia called, her voice slicing through his reverie. Do you think we could get some ice cream after this? She grinned widely, the hope in her eyes igniting a flicker of something warm within him. Jake's lips pulled into a hesitant smile. Sure, maybe we can have ice cream. It was the first time he'd entertained the thought of a treat in ages, and the idea felt both light and heavy. The gray-haired man chuckled softly. See, sometimes it just takes a little budge in the usual routine. A short detour can lead to something sweet. I suppose, Jake started, still wrestling with the heaviness in his gut. But the man's unwavering gaze made him feel seen, as if he could trust this stranger who offered not just food but companionship. What about you? Jake finally asked, breaking the silence that had wrapped around them. What do you get out of helping strangers like us? The man paused for a beat, and Jake could sense a shift in the atmosphere. The smile faded into a thoughtful line. It brings me back, he said simply. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs. Sometimes helping another reminds us of what's important. Jake absorbed his words, feeling a strange kinship with this man. They were both navigating waters that threatened to pull them under. Yet here they were, afloat in a sea of laughter and fries. I guess that makes sense, Jake murmured, his heart warming just a fraction more than it had moments before. Don't forget, it's also in the little things, the man said, gesturing to the diner around them filled with chatter and joy. A simple connection can turn someone's day around. The gravity of his statement weighed heavily on Jake. What if this moment, simple as it seemed, was a catalyst for change? What if they could carve out more memories, more joy, instead of succumbing to despair? Lost in thought, Jake considered the possibilities unfolding before him. They could float on this current of kindness, but how to live beyond this moment felt daunting. Could he truly allow someone else into his world, along with their potential for hurt and disappointment? Any plans after this? The man asked, pulling Jake from his reverie. What's next for you and your kids? Jake glanced down at the table, an abyss of looming uncertainty stretching before him. He knew he needed to consider it but felt trapped between fear and hope. Would he dare to face the unknown? And just then, Mia's laughter rang out, echoing in the back of his mind. Her world was still so expansive, so bright. Maybe a fresh start, he whispered under his breath. But what did that even really mean? Would this new connection lead to something more? Or would it simply float away like sugar on the surface of a melting cone? Before he could draw a breath, the diner door swung open, and a gust of wind rushed in, carrying with it an unexpected guest who would shake up everything they thought they knew. The bell above the diner door jingled cheerfully, disrupting the cozy hum of clinking cutlery and chatter. A woman stepped in, her presence striking and unexpected. Her sleek, dark hair flowed over her shoulders, and her tailored coat looked like it belonged on a runway rather than in a small-town diner. There was an air of confidence about her that felt almost palpable, drawing the gaze of everyone inside. She scanned the room, her sharp blue eyes landing on Jake and the gray-haired man before questioning the waitress, Claire, about the daily specials. Jake's heart raced. Who was she, and why did it seem like she had an agenda? Wow, Mia exclaimed, her innocent awe cutting through Jake's anxiety. She looks like a princess. Or a movie star, Jake muttered, still trying to process this new element disrupting their little world. The gray-haired man followed the woman's movements, a hint of recognition lighting up his face. Looks like someone important is here, he said lightly, as if sharing a private joke. Jake's mind was buzzing, torn between wanting to introduce Mia to this new reality and the urge to hold her back from anything that felt out of reach. He could see the curiosity in Mia's eyes, each glimmer pushing him closer to a decision: to embrace a world outside their struggles, or to protect their fragile peace. As the woman approached their table, all eyes in the diner seemed to turn toward her. She flashed a warm yet incredibly poised smile. "Hi there," she said, her voice smooth like silk. "Mind if I join you?" Jake swallowed hard. Sure." Mia's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Can we get ice cream?" She chimed in, beaming at the unexpected guest as if she were a celebrity. The woman's laughter was genuine, cutting through the tension like a knife. "Absolutely, little one. Ice cream is always a good idea, don't you think?" It wasn't long before cakes, sundaes, and various flavors of ice cream started arriving at their table. For Jake it felt surreal, like watching a dream unfurl. The gray-haired man surprisingly seemed at ease, as though he had met her before. As ice cream was passed around, Jake struggled to keep up with the conversation. The woman introduced herself as Victoria, a philanthropist and someone genuinely interested in giving back. They chatted easily, yet Jake couldn't shake an undeniable weight resting on his shoulders. The moment felt too good to be true, like a glimmer of hope he fearfully clutched. "Tell me," Victoria said suddenly, turning her attention directly to Jake. "What are you hoping for? What kind of fresh start do you dream about?" At that moment Jake felt exposed. The room fell silent, the air thick with expectation. He could feel the gray-haired man watching him intently, Mia's innocent smile urging him to be honest. Could he share his fears, his dreams? "I just want my kids to be happy," he finally admitted, his voice shaking slightly. "I'm trying to give them everything I can, but some days it feels like I'm falling short." Victoria studied him for a moment, her gaze softening. Sometimes help comes from unexpected places. You never know who might be listening, or how someone can lend a hand when you need it most. Jake locked eyes with her, sensing an opportunity. Do you have any ideas?" Before Victoria could respond, the bell above the door rang a second time. A man in a sharp suit stepped inside, looking around with an intense gaze. The atmosphere shifted. Tension prickled at the edges and Jake's stomach flipped. Somewhere deep down he felt that this too meant something. As Jake wondered what fresh challenge this newcomer would bring, he felt Mia squeeze his hand under the table, reminding him that, no matter what, she was with him. And that, in itself, felt like a purpose worth fighting for. But who was this stranger, and how would they alter the fragile balance Jake had only just begun to grasp? The sharp-eyed man stalked further into the diner, his presence imposing. The chatter faded to whispers as patrons curiously watched him cross the room. The atmosphere shifted again, both unsettling and electric. Jake's heart raced, and he caught a glimpse of Mia's concerned expression. Had her innocence caught on to the mystery playing out before them? Victoria seemed unfazed, her confident demeanor unwavering as she easily conversed with Mia about favorite ice cream flavors. "So what is your top pick?" she asked, her voice smooth and inviting. Mia, a little starstruck, leaned closer to Victoria. "Chocolate chip cookie dough. It's the best." "Excellent choice," Victoria replied, her attention shifting momentarily toward the man in the suit. She didn't flinch as he slowed to a stop near their table. His eyes locked onto hers like a predator assessing its prey. "Victoria," he said, voice low yet commanding. "Interesting place to conduct your business." Jake's chest tightened. He couldn't catch his breath as the tension ballooned like a balloon ready to pop. The cheerful spirit of the diner seemed to fade, replaced by heavy intrigue. "What do you want, Charles?" Victoria replied, her voice steady, yet there was a flicker of something dread, perhaps behind her eyes. Charles smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You know exactly what I mean. It's time for you to face the consequences of your choices. This little charity project of yours, it's not going to carry any weight in the real world. Jake didn't know what to make of their exchange. His mind whirled with questions. Who was this guy? What kind of power did he hold over Victoria? And how did it affect him and Mia? Suddenly Victoria's gaze turned sharp. I'm doing good work here, she insisted, her chin lifting defiantly. People need help, not judgment. You of all people should know that. Her words reverberated in Jake's mind. Here she was with her poised confidence, standing her ground against this man who clearly had some steam behind him. But Jake couldn't help the nagging fear creeping back. And what did this mean for Mia? Is this what it takes to help those in need? Charles shot back, tone laced with sarcasm. A little stardust? You think buying ice cream for a few sad faces makes a difference? You're wasting your time. Jake watched Victoria's expression falter for just a breath. In that fleeting moment she looked human, vulnerable. He felt a pang in his heart. He knew what it was like to fight against the odds, to keep going when you sometimes felt like giving up. What do you think these kids want? Victoria's voice rose, fierce with conviction. They don't want condescension. They want someone who cares enough to listen. That's how we make a difference. Then she turned to Jake, her fierce blue eyes locking onto his. People are here because they crave connection. Understanding. You understand, don't you? Jake nodded, taken by her sudden focus. Before he could respond, Mia spoke up, her small voice cutting through the tension. Can we get more ice cream? I'll share with you too. Laughter bubbled up momentarily, breaking the heavy silence. But as quickly as it came, the laughter faded, dragging everyone back to the stillness that hung thick in the air. Jake looked from Victoria to Charles and back to Mia, taking in the whirlwind of emotions flooding the diner. The gray-haired man observed quietly, face unreadable, but Jake caught a hint of concern. Victoria, if this is just a show, Charles began, but Victoria interrupted him. It's more than just a show, Charles. This is real life for real people. Jake swallowed hard. What happens next? He wondered, teetering on the edge of confrontation. He wasn't just a bystander anymore. The stakes had risen. A decision loomed ahead, and he knew he had to choose whether to act or remain silent. But neither option felt safe. As the flames of confrontation flickered in the air, Jake felt Mia squeeze his hand tightly. There it was again, the simple connection. If only he could channel that strength into something greater. They had come for ice cream. But now, standing within this swirling storm of tension and uncertainty, Jake knew they were about to serve up something much more powerful. Would this encounter fracture the fragile balance they had strived to create, or would it be the catalyst for something extraordinary? Mia's soft grip on Jake's hand pulled him back to the present. He looked down at her innocent face, a mix of curiosity and concern. How could she be okay in a moment like this? The contrast between Mia's bright-eyed innocence and the simmering tension in the diner felt surreal. Charles continued to observe, his expression a mix of annoyance and amusement. Touching, he said, rolling his eyes. But will your efforts really change anything? This isn't a fairy tale, Victoria. It might not be a fairy tale, but I see the change every day. Victoria shot back, her voice strong and unwavering. The people around them shifted in their seats, tension crackling in the air, almost palpable. Jake felt sweat bead on his forehead. The stakes were rising, and it felt like all eyes were on him, waiting for a response. Maybe he found himself saying, maybe there's more to this than you understand, Charles. The words sounded louder than intended, echoed by a few gasps around the diner. Charles raised an eyebrow, intrigued. And what exactly would you know about it, young man? Jake gulped. I may not know much, but I see what Victoria's doing. He glanced at Mia, who looked up at him, eyes wide and trusting. You can't measure kindness by the number of ice creams bought or by scale. The diner quieted further, tension tightening the space. Customers exchanged looks, whispers of approval rippling through as they began to sense the weight of Jake's words. Kindness changes people, Jake continued, finding strength. Maybe it's not about making a dent in the world but creating ripples, touching one life at a time. The thought felt right, unearthing something within him. A fury inspired by weeks of uncertainty as a single dad. Charles's smirk faltered slightly, replaced by a steely gaze. And what difference will those ripples make to the big picture? You need more than good intentions to make an impact, he challenged. Perhaps it starts with good intentions, Victoria added, her voice rising to meet Jake's assertiveness. People give up too easily when they think they have to tackle everything alone. Helping one person could inspire another, it's a chain reaction. For a moment, the tension hung in the balance, and Jake felt the weight of everyone's hopes resting on them. Could this really go somewhere? Then let us see if that theory holds true, Charles spoke, his voice taking on a skeptical tone. If ripples are so powerful, let us see them in action. I challenge you both, show me the proof of your impact. Or let this little project finally meet its end. Jake's pulse quickened. What did that mean? A test? A gamble? What do you mean? Victoria asked cautiously, her demeanor shifting as the challenge settled heavy in the air. Charles leaned in, his voice almost a whisper, but all could hear. A single month. You have 30 days to convince me that this matters. If you bring me true change, real, measurable change, I'll consider supporting your mission. But fail and this little charade ends here. The words hung like a storm cloud low above the diner. Mia squeezed Jake's hand again. This time it felt different. A blend of fear and unwavering belief. Jake's heart raced, torn between hope and uncertainty. They could tackle this, he could finally make things better for Mia and those around them. But was there even a chance against someone like Charles? Victoria's chin lifted, her fierce blue eyes flashing with determination. We'll take your challenge. But understand this, it's not just about the numbers. It's about human connection. Something shifted in the atmosphere. A quiet reckoning. Jake's breath caught. He had never felt more alive, yet terrified. They had a task ahead of them, one that could change everything. But was it truly possible to make waves in such deep waters? The question pulsed in his mind as the diner erupted into a low buzz, people leaning forward, captivated by the unfolding events. The game was on, and so too was the clock. As Jake looked from Victoria to Mia, something in him flickered with a new sense of purpose. They were no longer just fighting for ice cream smiles, they were fighting for something deeper, something real. Could they weather this storm? Could hope emerge from the chaos? He felt the weight of possibility settle over him, a warm glow against the chill of doubt. But soon the rush of reality descended. The challenge was just the beginning. All eyes were on them, each moment counting down to the next. This was merely the start. What would be left standing when the dust cleared? Would they find strength or be swept away? With the stakes as high as they could get, anything could happen next. Jake sat back in his booth, surrounded by a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. The chatter buzzed around him, people throwing glances between him, Victoria, and Charles. The weight of the challenge loomed over his heart like a heavy fog. A month? 30 days to prove that kindness mattered, to make Charles see the ripples of change that felt so unmeasurable yet vital. Mia, still holding his hand, squirmed a little. Daddy, are we going to help people? Her innocent question cut through the noise, pulling him back into focus. Jake looked at her, the sparkle in her wide eyes igniting a fire in his belly. Yeah, kiddo. We're going to make a difference, he promised, his throat tight. Victoria flashed him a supportive smile. One step at a time. We can start small. We can show Charles what real connections look like. Her voice was steady, unwavering. But could they really do it? As the diner patrons went about their meals, Jake couldn't shake the feeling of being on a tightrope. He needed ideas. They needed a strategy. His mind raced, jumping from one possibility to another. There was one thing he knew for sure. They needed to touch people's hearts, to create stories that Charles couldn't ignore. Let us brainstorm, Jake said, his voice gaining momentum. What will really impact people? What can we do for the community that isn't just about giving? Victoria nodded, her expression earnest. How about a sort of community spotlight? We could get locals involved, sharing their stories, their struggles, and their triumphs. You never know who's listening. Jake felt a swell of hope. That's a great idea. We could set up a board with photos and stories around here. Let people know they're not alone. That's it, Victoria encouraged, excitement glinting in her eyes. People want to feel seen. If we focus on individual stories, those ripples will create waves. Mia drew a picture on the paper tablecloth, doodling a large heart surrounded by stick figures, all smiling. "They look happy, Dad," she chimed, her voice cheerful. "Yes, they do," Jake replied with a smile, the tension around him easing just a bit. "And they will be even happier when they see that their stories matter." Charles, still at his table, observed them with that same steely expression. Jake couldn't help but feel the need to defy that cold skepticism. He would show Charles they could inspire change. But inspiration was one thing, action was another. "We need a plan to get more people involved," he said, determination flowing through him. "Yeah. We could set up events," Mia piped in, her eyes aglow with excitement. "Like a story night." "Yes." Victoria clapped, the sound sharp against the hum of the diner. "We can have people share their stories while we offer some free snacks, make it fun. A community gathering." The idea felt magnetic. They could create a buzz, draw people in, and maybe even inspire more kindness through connection. He could already feel the shift around them. Jake's heart picked up speed. Time was ticking. They had 30 days and he needed to lead them. But doubt crept back in. What if it wasn't enough? What if Charles didn't see their efforts? No more second-guessing, he reminded himself. He glanced at Mia. The light of hope shining in her face ignited his resolve. As they started crafting their plan, he felt a sense of urgency. Every moment counted, and the next few days were critical in getting the word out. "To the people's stories," Jake declared, lifting an imaginary glass of lemonade. "To stories," Mia repeated, beaming. Victoria echoed their enthusiasm, her eyes sparkling with shared commitment. But Charles was still a looming figure, a wall to be climbed. "Let us invite him," Jake proposed, a sudden thought hitting him. "If we're going to show him real change, why not include him in this?" "You mean invite Charles to the first story night?" Victoria asked, her brows raised in surprise. "Yeah, why not? Let him hear these stories firsthand. Could change everything. It might even change him." The idea energized the booth, igniting a mixture of hope and fear. Jake knew this was a risk, but that was the point, wasn't it? They had to take a leap of faith. "Okay, then it's decided. We'll create a flyer and start reaching out," Victoria said, determination slicing through the air like an electric current. They dove into planning, excitement bubbling between them. But as the outline took shape, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that time was always slipping away. Could a story really change a man like Charles? Would he really be open to it, or would he just scoff once again? As he looked around the diner, the ambient noises faded, replaced by a singular thought. They were ready for battle. But would they uncover something deeper, a connection that shattered preconceived notions? And with that, the countdown began. Could they turn the tide before the month was up? Would they find the courage to face whatever came next? The days flew by in a flurry of activity. Jake, Mia, and Victoria collaborated passionately, their vision transforming from a scattered idea into a concrete plan. The diner became a hub of warmth and connection. Little by little, the walls that once felt heavy and enclosing began to feel lighter. They created vibrant flyers inviting the community to the upcoming story night. Each piece of paper burst with color and a compelling message. Share your heart, change your world. Mia's doodles made the flyers pop, and her excitement spread like wildfire. The buzz in the diner grew. Regular customers began talking, spreading the word about the event. Every afternoon, there were murmurs of support as people rallied around the idea of sharing stories, hungry to connect. Even Claire, the waitress, reported that more and more patrons were inquiring about the event. This felt like something bigger than each individual, not just a story, but a journey that could uplift the very fabric of their community. Still looming over their progress was Charles. Despite the lightness around him, the challenges remained heavy in Jake's chest. He had sent an invitation to Charles, but deep down, Jake feared the cold response he might receive. What if he ridicules this effort? What if it ends in disappointment? These thoughts crowded his mind, especially at night when doubts danced like shadows around him. But mornings were different. As the sun shone down, Mia's laughter rang out like music, and the joy in her eyes was enough to mask the worries. One morning while they crafted packets of stories together, Mia looked up at him, determined and playful. "Daddy, what if Charles comes and he likes it and then he helps even more?" Her innocence struck Jake right in the heart. That hope, that simple yet profound desire to see the good in people became his guiding force. The story night arrived with a buzz of energy that was almost tangible. The diner filled up as families, friends, and curious onlookers took their seats. Their chatter filled the air, brightening the atmosphere. Jake's heart raced. Victoria stood beside him, encouraging him to take the lead. "You've got this. Just speak from your heart," she whispered, a grounding presence as she placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. With a deep breath, Jake approached the small podium they had set up in the diner corner. A bright spotlight illuminated him like an old movie star under the spotlight's glow. He felt all eyes on him, hearts open, waiting. "Welcome, everyone," he began, his voice trembling slightly but growing steady with each word. "Thank you for being here. Tonight isn't just about sharing stories. It's about building connections. Each story has the power to inspire and show us we're not alone." He called on a few brave souls from the crowd to share their stories. Each tale, filled with laughter and tears, revealed the struggles they overcame, cementing the bonds of shared humanity. The diner transformed from a place filled with judgment to one filled with empathy. As people shared, Jake could see Charles sitting at the back, initially expressionless but slowly, a flicker of interest crossed his steely features. He was listening. In that moment of collective sharing, something powerful shifted not just in Jake, but in everyone present. They connected over heartfelt laughter, shared tears, and common experiences, weaving a tapestry of love amidst their individual lives. As the stories flowed, Mia chimed in, sharing her simple yet profound thoughts about family and hope. "When we help each other, we are like superheroes," she declared confidently. Murmurs of agreement echoed throughout the diner, and joy glittered in everyone's eyes. The night culminated when Jake finally turned to Charles, who was now leaning forward, a hint of vulnerability breaking through his guarded mask. "Charles, would you like to share your story?" Jake asked gently, hoping to bridge the gap between them. All eyes turned to Charles, the tension palpable. The room held its breath, waiting for him to respond. "I've never been one to share." His voice was almost a whisper, but there was a noticeable tremor of honesty breaking through his facade. Jake's heart raced as he sensed a shift. This was a real moment of possibility. "You'd be welcome just like anyone else here tonight. We're all in this together," he urged. Charles hesitated for a heartbeat, then stood up. The room quieted as he stepped forward. "Fine. I'll share." And as Charles began, Jake was astonished. Instead of coldness, he uncovered raw honesty, sharing struggles of isolation, the pressure of expectations, and a hunger for connection he had buried for years. Subtle emotions radiated, captivating everyone in the diner. By the time he finished, it was clear Charles had been transformed, just like Jake had hoped. The diner erupted into applause, and a sense of community filled the air, a mutual understanding of the struggles they all faced. That evening, not only had they shared stories, but they had sparked a movement. The ripples of kindness began to spread, binding them together. Each connection made that night resonated, lifting weights off Jake's shoulders, reminding him that vulnerability could lead to immeasurable strength. Later, as the last of the diner patrons left, Jake felt an unshakable warmth inside. They had inspired change on that tiny stage, and something remarkable began to flourish. Charles approached, smile genuine. "I see now what you all are doing. I'd like to help." Jake's heart soared. Did this mean something more? This was the transformation he had been dreaming of. Perhaps they could truly change the world, one story at a time. As he looked at Mia, who was now laughing and playing with some new friends she had made, Jake knew they were on the right path. The shadows that threatened to engulf them began retreating, replaced by the light of genuine connection. In the days that followed, Charles became involved in their community activism efforts, pushing for resources to bolster the project they had begun. From fundraising events to storytelling workshops, they rallied more individuals to join their cause. The diner thrummed with life. It was no longer just a place for meals but a sanctuary for connection and hope. As weeks flew by, their transformative journey culminated in a celebration, tangible proof of what kindness could achieve when people chose to share their struggles and support one another. The bonds created were deeper than any they could have imagined. Jake sat with Mia, a heart brimming with gratitude as he took in the joy around him. He realized now that letting go of pride was the true strength. "Thank you for believing in this," he whispered to Mia as she hugged his arm tightly. "No, thank you for being my superhero," she beamed, her innocence shining like a beacon. And just like that, Jake knew this was merely the beginning of their journey, a collective vow to uplift each other amid life's challenges. He glanced around at the thriving lives and spirits surrounding them, and the warmth of kindness filled the air. With newfound purpose and hope, Jake and his little family embraced their next chapter. Heroes who found strength in vulnerability and battering storms transformed into waves of kindness. And so the diner stood not just as a place to eat, but as a vibrant beacon of hope, a reminder that in the face of adversity, it's always time to rise together, circled by love, acceptance, and unyielding support. This was their moment and they wouldn't waste it. If you feel inspired by this journey of transformation, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for more incredible stories like this one. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and comment your reactions and feelings about this heartwarming conclusion. Let us spread the love and connection together. Share it with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey.